Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are. This is the Palmdale School District EdTech Coaches Podcast. This is podcast number 3. I'm Steve Stuckey hosting today from outer space, and I have my colleagues with me who will be glad to introduce themselves.
I'm Dan Hopman, and I'm at Mount Fuji right here in Japan.
I'm Jerry Sloan, and I'm celebrating fall somewhere in Northern Hemisphere.
Hey, live from Kona. I wish. Oh, I'm Melissa Shields. Sorry.
You just cared about being in Kona, right?
You know it.
We've talked before on other podcasts that if you're interested in maybe using these somehow in your classroom, give us a call and set up a time with us, and we'll come down and talk about ways we can use this in your classroom. Today, we are going to talk about a little bit of ClassLink and our YouTube channel, Chromebook best practices, a little insight into what happened last weekend at the EdTech Summit here in Palmdale. If you want to go on a virtual field trip, we'll give you the website and how to sign up for that. We're going to talk a little bit today about the topic of, is paper useless in the classroom, or really, does paper have a place in the classroom anymore? We'll talk about some upcoming trainings headed your way, and how to get hold of us so that you can bring us out to your school. So let's get started. Dan, why don't you give us a little bit about the ClassLink and the importance of some best practices? Maybe you can do both those at one time.
We can absolutely do both those at one time. So you can tell I'm in a student's ClassLink account. Trying to get kids and adults in and out of ClassLink is so much easier if you connect the Google connector on the backside. So I'm logged into ClassLink. If I come up here to the person, go to my profile, sign in options, and I can connect my Google account. Make it easier on yourself, make it easier on your students. Logged in to ClassLink through Google makes it so much easier. So now all I have to do when I go to sign in is hit that sign in with Google. I don't have to enter in my Active Directory. I don't need to go around to my class to make sure that they're putting in their Active Directory incorrectly. It's all taken care of.
You don't have to you don't have to have Chrome save your username and password, which is probably not a great practice when you don't own the computer.
That is very true, and I always remind students to make sure that they're always not saving their passwords within Chrome.
Teachers, did you hear that?
Yeah, it goes for teachers as well. And yeah. The other thing we want to talk about is some Chromebook tips. While I talk, I'll leave this slide up. But the big one I wanted to hit on is students shutting down their Chromebooks. At minimum, they should be doing it weekly. At best, daily. What happens is that when the students don't shut down daily or even weekly, the Chromebook doesn't have a chance to update, and neither do any of our programs that we use on a daily basis. Also, when teachers complain about not having, or students not having the ability to bring up ClassLink easily, it's because that the Chromebook hasn't been logged off. They need to be logged off, not just shut down, not just closed up, because all that does is put it to sleep. Allow students to shut it down, get a good charge overnight, and the next day, there should be no worries about updates. ClassLink should open right away. But keep in mind, once they close ClassLink once, the easy way to get to ClassLink is to hit this home button. It takes you right back. It's a beautiful thing.
Beautiful thing.
Beautiful thing. Thank you, Dan. We also...
Can I just interject real quick here? One point. We've heard from quite a few teachers that the kids can't get into ClassLink, mostly with middle school, upper grade kids. And sometimes that could be because the kid went in, changed their password when it was initially prompting them to do that, and they've already forgotten their password. So you might want to check with your site tech on that about maybe resetting their password for them, and then they'll be able to get in just fine.
All right, so we mentioned that we have a YouTube channel where we have these podcasts stored, where we have numerous other things that we've done over the years. If you go to YouTube and you just search for PSD EdTech Coaches, you will be able to find our channel. and hit the word subscribe and go back and look at some of the tutorials that you might find there. Things like Infinite Campus and doing your grades, which is a timely topic right now. So last week, guys, we went to the AV EdTech Summit and heard a lot of great speakers, 2 great keynote speakers that I thought were kind of inspirational. And we were wondering about what your takeaways might have been from that. And we'll tell people how they can listen to those keynotes later.
So what I really enjoyed listening to Ben Cogswell. The point of view from a kinder teacher, I think, was very important. We did have some kinder teachers there. One of them was a brand new teacher, never taught kinder. And so having that perspective of kids can do just about anything, don't let age be a hindrance, I think was really important, especially with some of the sessions that he did off of the keynotes. I went into one and he was talking to one teacher about, we at first grade, we only have iPads. And Ben's reaction was, so what? What can you do with the tools you already have? You don't need to sit there and try to change what you do. Make it simple. You already have it, use it.
Dan, you mentioned about not letting age be a hindrance, but also just the limitations that sometimes we think that we have. And from some of the different presenters, although I didn't get around to see all of them, they were talking about accessibility and not just age, but differing abilities that students have, not letting those things be a hindrance as well, that there's different apps that can be used so that students can do just about anything. And the only limitations we're really putting on them are our own limitations. And there are just different things out there that will allow students to be creative and to be innovative and inventive and just to express what they're learning and show their learning through the technology that's available.
I love what you guys said, and there were so many teachers who felt inspired. Teachers who don't usually use technology, and they work with the little kids, but they also realize how much potential there is after they heard our 2 speakers. I mean, taking risks and going forward into our future with our students together. I was really inspired by the speakers and all of our wonderful PSD presenters as well.
Since we've brought up the point, we've been talking about littles, and that's what Ben Cogswell brought out. I had the opportunity to train a teacher real quick on Smart Learning Suite. She took it and ran and really upped what I did with her. She now can get her kindergarten kids logged in through ClassLink to Smart Learning Suite online, push out a manipulative activity. This is Deborah Brown over at Quail Valley. So if you're listening, we're giving you props. You've done some great things with that. So the kinder kids, it takes some learning time, sure, up front, but when they get it, and they can run with it. And we'll save the rest of that discussion when we talk about the paper issue.
If you've ever been walking through Target or Walmart and you see all the 5-year-olds sitting in the cart, they all have the devices, so they can do it.
Absolutely.
Born with devices, right?
That's right.
Okay, so with that and the EdTech Summit, I'm going to do a real quick share of CILC, which is a clearinghouse for online field trips. And CILC is the Center for Interactive Learning and Collaboration. There is a login that you need to do. We can teach you all about that and how to access all of the different field trips that you can do. It's a great service. Many teachers are already using it in the district, and there's money that's been seeded. So these may cost money, but you can still take your kids on field trips. Once you've gone through this site and you found what you like, you do need to have that conversation with your principal. So back at our website, Palmdale School District or palmdalesd.org/edtech. Over on the side, you will see a CILC link, which will give you a link back to that page I just showed you, but it's also the important part, the CILC request form, which you must fill out, that mentions that you've had this conversation with your administrator, that they have okayed you taking this field trip, and the person in charge will put in a pin, and you will continue on meeting up with those people to be able to take your kids virtually almost anywhere. All right, so let's talk now, and we'll keep on moving. What about paper? Does paper have a place in our classroom anymore?
You know, just like our books are going digital, I just like the idea of paper just disappearing and not having a place in the classroom. I think all learners need the ability of not only reading on paper, but writing on paper. And I know everyone's going to say you're the digital guy, and I do think there's a place for the digital side just as much as there is for the non-digital side.
Well, there's
Analog.
things that should be done on paper. And if they
Correct.
should be done on paper, they should be done on paper.
Absolutely. Trying to work through a math problem and you know, may not be as easy on as of right now on a digital device, but eventually, you know, I could see that transitioning over. But just to be, you know, for going in and watching a second grader and using their dexterity of writing, I think is really important for their development.
Definitely. And learners have different styles. They need to be fluid in reading online materials as well as reading paper materials. But it's really nice to have a chance to organize digitally for the teacher and the student and to get that immediate feedback. So that is one advantage of having paperless as well.
You've all had those kids who organize all their papers in their desk. And you know what I mean? They're not neatly stacked, but you can find stuff from 3 months ago crumbled up in the back.
Or you have their Avid notebook that's, you know, way over, you know, stuffed. And, you know, it's just, there's got to be a better way. You know, not to get into the whole discussion about Avid and their notebooks, but, you know, there's got to be a way to keep those, you know, organization is a big thing. There's got to be a better way than this. It's time to start bringing that notebook down.
I know
Probably save a few backs on that too.
Yeah.
I'm a learner who benefits by digital organization, but I also need to write things down physically and see them. So doing both really helps me as a learner.
And as educators, you know, we would be remiss if we didn't make sure that there was a balance, right? We have to prepare students for accessing digital textbooks, digital, you know, documents, their work, but at the same time, if we do go more towards that and we leave off the paper aspect, then we're kind of missing the balance there.
And also being able to hit all those different learning modalities, the ones that need to see it or the ones that need to do it, and the ones that need both. You know, we got to hit all of our learners, not just one. I think it's got to be a focus.
Yeah, I'm one of those learners where I will remember things better if I remember it in my own handwriting. If I read a book, I won't remember what page or what it looked like or what the font looked like as far as my memory goes. And the older I get, of course. But if I'm writing it down, that's the second time I'm touching the material, or maybe a third time because I read it, I processed it, it went to my hand, now I see it on paper. And then again, if I'm reviewing my notes that are on paper, I'm physically touching something. And so that's another way for me. I do better with paper. I would rather read a book, a physical book, than a digital book. Some people are the opposite. They'd rather the digital, but that could just be my eyes. I don't know.
Well, you know, when we talk about, you know, writing paper, and you brought up books, Melissa, there's sometimes digital just does things better. Obviously, storing books digitally takes up almost no room other than the little bit that you have on the width of your iPad. But sometimes digital does things better, such as, you know, how many meetings have you done, or you do some brainstorming with the kids and you give them all sticky notes, and then they go up to a poster and they stick them up on the wall, and that's where they park it. So you're wasting paper. The writing's so small, nobody can see it, and it takes up space on the wall. Well, digital can do all of that, and it can be really visible for everybody in the classroom while you're doing that brainstorm activity and seeing what they're thinking at the same time, rather than trying to get 30 kids to go look at a poster on the wall. So environmentally and efficiently help out your class.
It also ends up becoming, with your example, a classroom management issue, because you know how it is. Kids get up, it's out of their routine, and they start interacting with each other when you have a simple task. go put that sticky note up on the wall. So yeah, I mean, digitally, I think it has its advantages.
Everybody talking at once, and also being able to go back and find it later without having to roll it up and store it somewhere too.
Yeah, but
We're
we have to
losing a sticky
remember,
note.
like we talked at the beginning of the year, Dan, if you remember, we talked about it's the task, not the tool, right? So whatever tool you might need for the learning, whatever's best, whether it's paper might be best, digital might be best. It depends on the task that you would choose your tool.
Yeah, the task has to fit what it is you want your kids to know, so that way you can use the tool appropriately. I agree.
Beyond just paper and picking the right task, we do have this issue with books. Now, there are studies that have shown that people think they perform better and comprehend better reading digitally, but the studies have shown otherwise. So perceptions versus reality, digital versus paper, might be off a little bit. But either way, I know in California, I think it was 2009, they did pass a law that says all colleges have to have their textbooks electronic by 2020 next year. And we also, as being a K-8 school district, need to start preparing our kids for college readiness. What do you guys think about that?
Definitely. You need to be fluid in both mediums. You really do. You need to be able to go back and forth as a person in the world, not just a student.
Right. There has to
Well, Melissa's fixing her mic. I think that our kids need to be able to do both, because when our kids end up in college in 10, 15 years from elementary up there, they're going to have the digital textbook, and then when it's time to do their research, they're going to have to go to a physical library. Most books are in the library are still physical books. They're not digital books. So I think there's going to be this sort of a grandfathering in or a weaning off of the old books. Eventually, I think we'll be completely digital when it comes to instructional materials and books.
Someday.
I'm really curious to find out what libraries of the future then will look like with what you're saying, if we're going so digital, because I have a place for libraries in my heart.
Yes.
And books that I don't want to see disappear, but maybe I'm just thinking about me.
Yeah.
Well, but
I would be devastated if the books were gone.
Moving on.
Well, and I will say there's nothing like picking up an old book, opening it up, hearing it kind of crack a little bit, and getting that old book smell. That to me is priceless. I don't think you'll ever get rid of that, obviously. So that's why I'm hoping that there it is. Melissa's playing with her book. I'm hoping that we find that balance. I think Jerry said it, balance between the digital and, I guess, the old digital.
I love the smell of opening up a new iPad box too.
This sounds like one of Steve's campfire discussions, right, Steve?
Well, this is a discussion that can go on, but I think if we back it up with some of those studies, that we need to find that, as you say, Jerry, a balance, and understand that what we perceive sometimes might not be the reality.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that will change as digital learners who are more digital native than, say, I am or you are, they learn that way only because they don't have the books.
Their kids are definitely different than we were back in the day, or even the kids in the middle. So yeah.
So I'm curious, between all of us, do you prefer to, if you were reading a book for pleasure, learning, whatever, do you prefer digital or the physical book?
For me, I prefer reading fictional books digitally, actually. Well, not even all fictional books. I like the fact that I don't have to carry around a book. I'm on an airplane, I'm traveling, it's easy to carry with me. But when I really get down to studying, I buy the book. And when I really want to dig deep, I like to mark things up and highlight and write on it, refer back.
When it comes to studying, if I highlight a digital book, it'll take all those highlights and put them together in one place so that I can cite them easily for a source in my papers. So even though I like hard copies, I have to admit those digital books are super convenient.
And I got to admit, I like the digital, but there's nothing like, I have young kids at home, so there's nothing like having the book out and having both the kids just sort of, you know, kind of zooming in over my shoulder, trying to see the words and reading with me. There's nothing like that. And as much as I love digital, you know, I think the old style books they kind of have a different persona when it comes to reading.
Yeah.
You know, reading to my kids when they were growing up wouldn't have been the same with an iPad in my hand as with laying in the bed with the book and having them point and turn pages and learn doing all that.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
We're getting a little tangential, which is wonderful fun.
Are you trying to move us along, Jerry?
I'm pulling a
That's a
Steve Jobs.
first.
Okay, so yeah, that's a first. So Jerry, let's move this along. Are you ready to share your screen and
Yes.
share with us some of the upcoming trainings?
Okay.
While she's doing that, I will tell you that not all the trainings are up yet for November and December. We are not going to post those until the end of October. But Jerry, what do we have coming up here our way?
All right. So we have some trainings coming up in October, and these two Google Docs are wonderful because Melissa's going to do Google Docs Basic and Steve's going to do Google Docs Elevate on the same day. Please be sure you choose the one that is right for you. If you've had Basics before, don't go to Basics again. Go to Elevate and learn more about this wonderful tool. We also have Digital Citizenship Week coming up. We're going to talk about media literacy. It's important for all grade levels and adults as well. Google Life Preserver will talk about Drive for beginners. It's going to be a very slow-paced presentation of Google Drive. And APAR Highlights, which is really only for people who've been through Chromebook Academy. That being said, I want to mention that we also still have our newsletter, which does put these down in a nice, easy place. And then when you go to PD Express, don't forget to look at in-district PD catalog when finding these to sign up for. And if you're not going to come, then unsign up for it. And keep in mind that some people don't show up. So if you're on the waiting list, please do come anyway. Okay, we'd love to see you.
And I was looking at that sheet, and I think someplace along the line it tells you how to connect with us. And if you know who your coach is at your site, talk to them, email them, let them know what you want to learn, what you need to do, and we'll just stop in and sometimes and offer some suggestions for you as well.
Yeah. Good.
All right, so I guess that's basically the end of this podcast, and we're hoping you got something out of it. Let us know what you think. As we sign off, I want you to remember you are not who you were. You are working on who you will be. Have a great day, and we'll see you back in November. Ciao.
Take it easy, guys.